Hello, YouTube. It's good to be back. I was up in Coeur d'Alene for 4 days, so sorry about the late posting. Um, we had the first of several memorials for Dick Rutan. He deserved several memorials, so this one was by invitation for friends and family. The next one will be on June 29th. I'll be going up for that at Coeur d'Alene Airport, which will be open to the public, and that'll be a Scream and Blast. And then the first night of AirVenture at Oshkosh, we'll be doing it for a third and final time. So that'll be great. It was, I think the event went really, really well. I had been working on the memorial video, which I thought might take me maybe 3 days. 2 days, I was thinking maybe 3. So when it came time to fly on Friday, I guess, Saturday? Friday? Friday. I'd been up for about 30 hours working here on Slugging in the Picture. I put the audio soundtrack together real fast, wrote the script and laid some really great music in underneath, had everything ready to go. And I'm just popping in the picture, shouldn't take too long. And this is the essence of why build time is so different than real time. I'll give you just a great example of this. There is a line in the memorial service where they're talking about Voyager. When Dick first pitched the idea to Burt, it was at a restaurant in Mojave. It's kind of a contradiction in terms, restaurant in Mojave, but you had to have been to Mojave to really know that. I've actually been to that restaurant. It's not a bad place. And the line is, astonishingly, Burt's first draft, literally on the back of a napkin drawing, was virtually identical to the proportions of the final, actual Voyager. And so I had the napkin. I just thought I'd slug the napkin in, and that'd take, all of, a minute or two. And then I decided, no, it really does look like Voyager. So I went out and found a plan view of the three axis view of the Voyager, took the top view, cut it out, basically, positioned it over the napkin, arranged it, zoomed it, scaled it, back and forth, got it just exactly right. And then when I say, astonishingly, the napkin looked almost identical to the finished product, then the finished product zooms in, and it's a great effect. It just took about 45 minutes. And so on Sunday morning, I had a flight out of here, Saturday morning? Friday morning. Lose track. Friday morning, I had thank you, Jeff. Hey, Jeff. Dick Rutan, great man, great American. He'll be missed by entire aviation community and beyond. Yes, absolutely. So I had an event that night on Friday night. The memorial was on Saturday. And I told him I was coming up obviously to MC the memorial and bring this video with me. And Friday night, the Kootenai County Republican Committee was having a annual convention meeting and their big dinner. And I'd done that once before, spoken at that show many years ago. And my friend Brent Regan asked me if I wanted to attend. I said, yeah, that sounds great. He said, our guest speaker will be Kari Lake. I said, Kari Lake? He said, yeah. And I said, well, I'll be there with bells on. You'll be able to find me easily. I'll be the guy from the, wearing the bells. Hey, Ben Adams, hi, super chat for hi from Florida, hi from California, back to you. We're in Florida, Ben. So I thought about this for a few minutes, and I thought, I really wouldn't mind connecting to the Kari Lake Donald Trump campaign and see if there's anything I can do. So I called Brent back and I said, hey, listen, I know it's short notice, because it was literally 4 or 5 days out, and said, is there any way you can get me 7 minutes by the clock? If you can get me 7 minutes by the clock, I'll blow people's minds and I'll make them laugh doing it. And he said, I have to clear it with we got a new chairwoman. I have to clear it with her and see and stuff. I said, I think it'll shake them up, Brent, and I'd really like to do it if I can. He said, what's it about? Yeah, I think Trump's going to win in a landslide, actually, President-elect, A1. But I'll get to that in a second. And I said, it's called Things to Come, and it normally takes me an hour, but I'm pretty sure I could get that out in about 7 minutes. The guts of it. So he called me back and he said, okay, she approved it, but under one condition, because of the order of the show, if you do your 7 minutes, then you'll have to introduce Carrie. I said, oh, okay. Which was almost better than I could have imagined. Now, already Dave Big Booty says it's about 7 minutes. So you're thinking, oh, Bill probably took 33 minutes. Bill actually took 8.5. I went over, but I went over by about 8.5. And I was looking around the room, and I glanced over at Brent, and he was like nodding. So yeah, I was able to do that. Plant City near Lakeland. I know where that is. It's not too far south of home of the Fighting Florida Gators. And Lakeland is where I went to Sun and Fun many years. It's fun. It's a pretty place out there, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but not too far from Orlando or Tampa. So congratulations. Thanks for saying hi, Ben. And thanks for the super chat. I had back to that morning. I'm sitting here at about 6:45 in the morning on Friday. My flight left LAX at 10:30 in the morning. That meant I had to leave the studio at 8:30 at the drop dead latest. And I am. We got different chats now, because Ben is in the YouTube chat, but Eric Blake in the Twitch chat says, nice, Lakeland Mulberry happens to be where I live, so you guys should get together and figure out a way to build a small golden statue of me that you can, worship at your leisure. Winter Garden, I remember Winter Garden from going up to Winter Garden from Coral Gables on grad night to Disney World. That was a fun bus ride. Anyway, back to the story. So it's about coming up on 7, and I'm looking at how much, and I've got about 2/3 of this picture cut, which means there's about 10 minutes of picture runtime left to go, and it's just not going to make it. And I'm just thinking, I'm not just going to have to cancel this morning flight, go out this evening. That'll get me there in time for the memorial ceremony the next day, which I could not miss. I really wanted to go to this thing with Carrie, and Bert said, just look, it's just for friends and family. Just cut together what you got and just come on up here. And that really helped me a lot, because I would have probably just stayed. But in any event, I didn't. So by the time I got to Bert's house after getting picked up at the airport, it was about 4 o'clock. We had to be ready to go out the door for the dinner at 5:45. So I got about an hour and 15 minutes sleep, and I'd been up for about 30 hours at that point. And I don't ever want to do that again. I remember doing that when I was 25, and that not being such a big deal, but I just was trashed, and a little dizzy actually in the reception there. And I didn't get a chance to talk to Carrie before the show, or even after, for that matter. But I did get a chance to go up there, and I did my Things to Come thing. And I don't know, Eric has asked if there's a recording for that. There might be in the Kootenai County Republican Committee in Idaho. Just enough time to do the hair, says Steve Whoop. You got it exactly right. This is a feral condition hair, by the way. This happens probably 3 times a year. 3 times a year. Once every 4 months or so, it gets to this point, and then I have to get it straightened and beaten into submission. So that happens probably next week, I think. And then I'll look like Malibu. Look like Malibu Trotsky again instead of, or Malibu Einstein instead of Pom Pom Boy. Anyway, back to the story. So I got a chance to go up there, and I felt really good about it. And most people had never heard anything like it. And the nice thing about that story is it's optimistic. Ended with the Glacier Girl analogy about being able to restore things and rebuild them, and I just when it's a big room, it's the biggest room I've done in a long time, to be honest with you. And as opposed to the way I usually am, which is lying all the time, to be honest with you. I was looking, just, scanning the room like I normally do. Kept looking down at Carrie Lake, and she was leaning forward, mouth open. It's like, oh my God, I've never heard anything like this. So I introduced her and brought her up to stage, and as she's coming up, she just whispers in my ear, she says, "You are a rock star." I said, "Well, thank you." So Now let me tell you about Carrie Lake. Um, the I've been a fan, obviously. I was a huge supporter, I mean, just like any other thinking person, for her governor campaign in Arizona in 2022. I loved the way she handled the press. I thought she was the only person I'd ever seen besides Donald Trump who knew how to take a loaded question, spin it back on the press. And I said, this is what it takes, man. You need to be able to do this to the press. She just wouldn't walk into the kill box. That's what Andrew Breitbart taught me back in 2010. Don't. Every question they're going to ask you is going to be set up so that there is no answer. The accusation will be built into the question. Don't do it. And Carrie has that same sense of ear. So she went up and gave her speech, and she mentioned me, I think, 6 times, which was extremely flattering for somebody I'd never met before. But this is just straight up fanboy, true story, nothing connected with me at all. She did 2 things that really impressed the daylights out of me. I knew she was good. I knew she was good rhetorically. I knew she could give a speech. I knew she could think on her feet. I knew all of that stuff. But as it happened, Idaho Republicans are having a civil war right now, and there's this sort of a counter-revolution against the whole MAGA Republican thing. I'm not going to use terms like rhinos or anything. I'm just going to say that there were people who were more old school, who were not happy about the fact that Trump supporters, populists, were really essentially taking over the state Republican Party, because that seemed to be what most people wanted. And so they had like a little civil war there, and they didn't actually go to this convention. They had like a counter protest kind of thing out in like in a park, and they're having a picnic there while this other thing's going on. So there are a lot of raw nerves there, and I didn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Fortunately, I didn't have to. And nothing I had to say had anything to do with that. But Kerry got up there and basically said, "Look, I've been all around the country, and I've never seen anything like this. I think 80% of the country is behind Donald Trump." She never said me and Donald Trump or anything. She just said Donald Trump. I think 80% of the country. I mean it sincerely. I've been everywhere, and while he doesn't have the 80% support among minorities, he's got 50% support among minorities. And then she said, "I think we're going to see a whole bunch of Democrats coming over in this election, a whole bunch of Democrats." So she's talking to the Republican, essentially the Republican committee for Idaho. And she said, "So would you guys allow Democrats into this movement, into this Make America Great movement, in order to save our country and get our country back? Because a lot of Democrats are sick of this nonsense too." And everybody goes, "Yeah." Then she did something that was genuinely courageous. One of 2 things she did that was genuinely courageous, which I just sat there and said, this woman's the real deal. So then she said, "Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that." She said, if we're gonna let Democrats into the movement, then can we not let our friends, the Republicans, back into the movement? Can't we all be in this together? I'm gonna have to put the glasses on. Tropley, sorry. Hi from Ohio. Welcome back. I love Ohio. I said, can't we let Republicans back into this movement? And the room got like really quiet. She said, we can't do this. We've got 5 months where we're going to be pulled apart by everything they've got. They're gonna do everything they can to split the party, and we're splitting the party for them. She says it's insane. I'm to people who think that I'm MAGA and not a conservative Republican or traditional Republican. I'm not only perfectly willing. I'm here to hold my hand out and extend a laurel branch and just say, listen, we may disagree on 20% of the stuff, but 80% of the stuff we are strong friends on, and we need to pull together on this. She went right at it, right at the exact hour, genuinely, actually the hour when things were at their most sensitive and raw. She went straight at it. and basically handled it with grace and a little bit of humor, and I was so impressed by the courage that took, because look, it would have been easy to just forget it, just not even bring it up. That would have been one angle. The popular angle would have been to say, well, if those rhinos think they're going to take over this party, they got another thing coming. That would have gotten huge applause because everybody's tempers and blood was up, But she didn't do that. She went straight for the reconciliation, and she did it from the heart, and basically challenged people. And then the room got really quiet, and I could see people's faces, see their expressions changing. That was one moment. And the second moment she had that I thought was genuine, honest to God, not just political courage, just moral courage. Moral courage was, she was saying, look, they've accused me of everything in the book, and I go out there and fight them pretty much every day. I don't want to be doing this, I just love my country. I'm worried about my country. I've got kids. But she said, but I'm a fighter. She said, I grew up in a family of 9 kids, and 8 of them were girls. So when girls fight, this is Carrie speaking, when girls fight, we start scratching eyes out and stuff. We don't hold back. So, they better not push her too hard. She said, if I get to the point where I start having hot flashes, then the media is going to be in real trouble. And I'm just lapping this up. But she said that this is pretty much a verbatim quote. But she said, look, again, very flattering. She said, Bill's made me feel better about things than I felt in a long time, with this idea of this all being cyclical. But the fact of the matter is, it's just really scary. And I'm a mom, she said. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes by myself, and I'm scared. I'm scared for the country. I'm scared for my kids. I'm scared for the future. Sometimes I get so scared, I wake my husband up and just say, I just need you to hold me. I'm really scared. And I thought the courage, the courage that took to say that. She's, as a mom, I'm worried. I thought that is a get you elected president moment. That's the kind of thing that people want to hear. That's the voice of genuine sincerity. When people can either laugh at themselves or admit their own weaknesses, that's when you know you're dealing with somebody who is genuine. And I just sat back and whistled, kind of, like, wow. So I'm still did spend a fair amount of the day today recovering. I'm going to just put these glasses on and get this charade over with so I can see what else is going on. There's something's moving over there. It takes a tough person to make that kind of an admission. And she also didn't say, I get scared while I'm out there fighting them. She said, late at night, 3 a.m, when I'm home with my husband, sometimes I just need a hug. And I thought, I'd vote for this woman to be president in an instant. In an instant. All the talking I do about female warriors and girl bosses and all the rest of it. I know a lot of people think it makes me into this big misogynist. On the contrary, but just so it's on the record, I mean, if she was president of the United States, I would sleep peacefully at night, and I think she's not only capable of it, I think she'd make an excellent president, because she's tough and she's compassionate. And I, just by happy coincidence, because I spoke before she did, just by happy coincidence, when I'm walking out, I said, well, anyway, these are the things that are coming, and we'll get, this old ship has been through this 3 times before. She'll get us through again. And I said, and so, the only real danger we face is the danger that we start to hate, our countrymen. They've been misled, and it's not their fault that they're misled. And if we get to the point where we start hating half of the country, then they've succeeded, and we'll have lost the best part of us. So it turned out that she came up with pretty much the same message. And so I'm going to write her tomorrow, hopefully. I don't have her email address, but I know people had invited her up there, so I'm pretty sure I can get it to her. And I'm just going to say, Carrie, here's what I thought you were amazing. Here's these 2 things that you did I thought were remarkable. And I would like to help in any way I can. I know how to frame these arguments. I'm really, really good at it. I'd like to help you, and I'd like to help President. She's in touch with Donald Trump, she said, almost every day. I said, to the degree that I can help, I'd like to help you and President Trump get this country back. And what I'm good at is constructing a rhetorical package to deal with these issues. And I'm just going to say, as a single example, when you get called about election integrity, they're going to say that you're trying to keep people away from the polls. And there's two answers to that. The two answers to that are, number one, if you're saying that voter ID and registration means that fewer black and Hispanic people will vote, then you're saying that you don't believe that black and Hispanic people are either patriotic enough, intelligent enough, or motivated enough to get an ID, which we all know is ridiculous because everybody has an ID. The reason we're fighting you Democrats is to get rid of this racism on your part. This idea that these people are children that you have to take care of is disgusting and disgraceful, and they don't like it, and we don't like it either. And furthermore, everything that we propose is in order to reduce cheating. And that's why we propose it. Everything that you are proposing is in order to increase cheating. So my question to you is, what is it about your position that requires you to cheat in order to get it sold? That's it. 2 sentences. Then just shut up and watch them squirm. Because there's no way out of that rhetorical trap. Tim says it's not easy to get in touch with her. I know it's not easy to get in touch with her, but I know the people who invited her to that event, so I can get it there. Now, whether she answers or not, that's entirely different. But I did rock that room, so I think I've got a good chance to hear back. In any event, whether I do or don't, at the very least, I'll have the peace of mind of saying, that I gave it my best shot, and I'll continue to give it my best shot. She's running for senator. I think she's got an excellent chance to do that. I also happen to think she's probably, if I had to guess, I think she's probably the most likely vice presidential candidate that Trump's got, because she's really, really good with the press. Arizona is a critical state. And on top of that, she's got the whole identity thing, Trump ought to basically just say, I picked Kerry because I think she's going to be an excellent 38th president of the United States. That's what I would do. And I just want to help. So anyway, it was really great. It was really fun. If you're a fan of Kari Lake, I can tell you I was there in the room when she did these things, and she is the real deal. She'd make a great press secretary too, says Steve Whoop. She's the real deal. She's genuine article. She's not just good at the optics. She's got real moral courage. I saw it twice in the space of 10 minutes, so I was very impressed. A couple of super chats here from Lapwood92. Didn't hear back from Shelley. Did the Clockwork Orange chair arrive at your office yet? It's bulky. Just wanted to make sure it shipped out from OKC. My complex plan is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Yeah. No, we have not received the Clockwork Orange chair to pry the eyes open so that I can watch 1, 2, 3. Hang on 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves. I went looking for this last time, and then I think I found it. Yes, talk amongst yourselves. Amuse yourselves. I'm going to put the saw here somewhere. Well, it's just another trip around the office for old Bill, who just needs to stretch his legs a little bit. And once again, I'm overcome by the amazing extent of the creative chaos that surrounds me. However, I will say in my defense, Bert Rutan has a messy desk too, and that's good enough for me. I was looking to find the DVD player. I brought it in. It's here in the studio, so I will get to 1, 2, 3, and I'll hope to get to 1, 2, 3 this week. And then what will we talk about? So anyway, that was that. That was my weekend. Oh, and I came back. Wanted to get back early because missed hanging out with my wife. So I flew direct up there, and then on the way back I had a transfer. I decided to come back earlier, so flew to Portland for an hour and 10-minute layover, and it turned out to be a 4-hour layover because the airplane she wasn't working, which was a little tedious, but not the end of the world. I never get angry enough to stop realizing what a miracle the whole thing is. But I will tell you this about Portland. I was in the airport at the food court, and I went to a place called Mod Pizza, which was kind of a super progressive thing. They make you a little pizza about this big with a pizza oven, just shove it in there. It sounded delicious. And everybody behind the counter, I just know for a fact that the 4 women that were working behind the counter were 4 lesbians there, and they all gave me this look like, oh, look, it's a straight white male. How did they know? And so I could kind of sense this wave of like attitude. But what was especially interesting was that they were always making these conspiratorial whispers, and I don't think they were all about me. I kind of got the impression that they were just like, oh yeah, Jim, they're just unhappy people. And everywhere I looked, I saw these young woke people, and they're just crazy, either crazy thin or crazy fat, and all the piercings and all the hair and all of the tattoos and everything, and they're not just a question of not smiling, they just all seem miserable. I feel so sorry for them, I really do. Labgo 92 is not, apparently is not sending me an internet share. Gosh. Anyway, so that's that. You'll be pleased to know, or horrified, I guess as the case may be, I should have said horrified to know, that the Biden campaign, before we get into the questions, the Biden campaign has used their ultimate weapon. They've trotted out celebrities to defeat the upcoming MAGA wave. Biden's support among young people has plummeted for mainly because so many Gen Zers are on the side of Palestine in this, which boggles the mind, but nevertheless, there's that. But nevertheless, it has plummeted, and so what they've done is they've sent out the big, emergency rockets to get Hollywood to make a to get Hollywood involved, so that Hollywood will get these Gen Zers back. And I know that the Gen Zers are really paying super close attention, because they've got people like Barbara Streisand and George Clooney and Julia Roberts and all of those swinging hipsters going out there trying to influence them. All of the Saturday Night Live writers, Colin Yost and Michael Che, who are hilarious, I have to say. They're writing jokes for the Biden campaign, and I saw the most cringe thing I've seen in quite a long time earlier today. Jack Black, who now weighs about 500 pounds, in red, white, and blue coveralls with a picture of Biden with the lasers coming out of his eyes. They're trying to make it that Biden is like this, like somehow this crazy Terminator guy, that he's just tough as nails, and no one's really buying it. And Jack Black came out and did this whole kind of thing where, and he's got this huge white beard, I think I don't remember who said it. I think it might have been Norm Macdonald. Might have been. It was Norm Macdonald or Zach Galifianakis who said that David Letterman with the beard looks like Santa Claus on meth. And Jack Black was talking about how he's, really going to get out there and really, really back this president. And I just wanted to say, hello, fellow youths. How do you do, fellow youths? I'm not thinking that, but the all-time winning strategy. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. In order to recover older voters, I heard this when I was up in Idaho. The Democrats are going to deploy a team of Jill Biden, and are you ready for this in terms of celebrity power? To go get the older boomer votes. They're going to hit the road with Jill Biden and Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda, which is a nice segue to the fact that at the memorial event, I got a chance to meet 5 or 6 Misty pilots. Now, people have asked in the comment section tonight, will the memorial be available? Yes. So I did a 70% memorial on Saturday. By the 29th of July, I'll have the whole thing finished, and then we have the first night at Oshkosh. And after the first night at Oshkosh, I'm going to post the memorial, and everybody will be able to share it. And anybody who wants to direct downlink, I'll figure out a way to do that too. So, if you don't know who the Misty mission pilots were from Vietnam, if you don't know what Misty was, you will. Because I did some really, really fun stuff. I'll say this about the Vietnam War. Worst fought war in our history, but man, it had the best music. I mean, there's no way to make a bad montage out of Vietnam if you use Magic Carpet Ride and Hush and Born to Be Wild. You simply can't make a bad montage like that. And what didn't make this cut, but which will make the next cut, is when Dick and his backseater, they would switch. They're both pilots. When Misty 40 and Chuck Sheehan, who was Misty 52, was in the backseat that got shot down over Vietnam and had to race for the ocean so that they could get picked up by Navy. That's the only joke in the whole thing, by the way. I'll just tell you that real quick. Anyway, they right as they transition into that segment where Dick is shot down, I've got the soundtrack, the 34-minute soundtrack as opposed to the 23-minute soundtrack, and it's beautifully mixed. There's a lot of variety of music, but just as I start talking about this, it's like the ding ding, the beginning of This Is the End, ding 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 ding, and then it's like on one of those pilots who was shot down was Misty 40. I said, "This is the end. Doom, 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 beautiful friend." It's haunting. And the Misties are getting a lot of love from me, and the DCS community is leaning real hard into Vietnam War stuff since the F4 module is so good. There is a very high fidelity F100 coming out. And when the F100 comes out, I'm going to start doing some Misty flying for DCS, and I'm going to be Misty 40, honor of my friend Dick Rutan. Road Rider says, fan for the common man. I got a chance to use, I really should have said soundtrack by Bill Whittle and Phil Trick, because I used Billy the Kid, I used Rodeo, a lot of Aaron Copland. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, but that 60s soundtrack, it's just a great. That video memorial is great, and the ending of it, was the first thing I did when I walked out of his room and. About 2 hours before he died, he was alone with his wife when he died, and went downstairs, and I thought, the one thing I know about what I'm going to do is it's going to end with the loudest frickin' sonic boom anyone's ever heard. And I put together the ending, and I used the music from Jane's USAF, which you may or may not know, but it's the most stirring music I've ever seen. Put this thing together, showed it to Natasha. I have this really soft kind of, golden clouds going by, And everybody talks about flying west, and I said Dick Rutan didn't fly west in a Piper Cub. Dick Rutan went out like this, and then I've got footage of an F-100 taken off for an air show at late twilight, nearly in the dark, and this thing just goes. This 40-foot jet of flame comes out of the back thing, and dun 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 dun. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like choking back the sobs. It's just so beautiful for me, and just this flyover, and I'm grabbing all these sound effects of, just putting in gunshots and all this stuff. So the ending is boss, man. The ending is just killer, and which is his call sign. So as soon as I get it finished, yes, I will post it to Ephemera. I need to post a bunch of things to Ephemera, but I will post it and I'll make it available for everybody to see. But that won't happen until after we premiere it at the first night of Oshkosh, which is mid-July. So that'll be that. There's Lapco92 again with a super chat. Random anecdote: got a friend in Australia hooked on Star Trek by showing her the Tribble episode. She died laughing at Kirk getting his coffee with a Tribble in it. She's now a huge Shatner fan. Good for you. I love that show. I love it. I just love it. That's a story for another time. All right, so I promised I would do all the questions. So let's do all the questions. The right angle that I was hoping to get done before I left on Friday will be up tomorrow morning, and I won't say anything about it other than to say that there's a 30-second piece in there where Steve Green and I are doing live comedy improv together, which was just a boatload of fun. Okay, so let's see. Got some. I'll save that for Thursday. Why not I'll just save it for Thursday. Some health news. Good news. There's the stills from Empire of Terror. It seems like it was 100 years ago. TSS questions for 6/17/24 pop culture. Take 3 by Marusha Dark. Thank you again, Marusha, for collating and commandeering and all this other stuff. Okay. Here we go. We got a Marusha Dark instructions. We got a Martin Archer, an Ian Nolan, a Marusha Dark, and another Martin Archer, Brandon Junger, Diane Freeman, Eric Blake, Janie Waterman, Jacob Belchuk, Eduardo Enrique, Roadrunner, and that'll do it. But I said I'd do them, so I'm going to, by God, do them. Bill Whittle, WDF, answer my question. What question would that be? Would that be the question of, I can't go back. If you want to restate it, I'll be looking for it. Do I think Trump's going to win? Yes. If that was the question, I originally saw the question associated with you, yes, I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win big. So I'll keep looking over there. Meanwhile, Martin Archer. Haven't been able to watch TSL recently, so I don't know if you've covered the subject, Bill, although I know you were alarmed like I am by the developments in AI. The more frequent, more blatant appearances of UFOs, such as those filmed by the Navy pilots. How about this postulation? I realize these craft, which make maneuvers that defy known physics, could well be man-made, but if they are indeed alien, then perhaps we're seeing them more because we are on the verge of unleashing AI. Aliens might well visit inhabited planets precisely at times like this in order to observe if the civilization avoids or succumbs to the self-inflicted extinction threat. Bill, is it possible for SpaceX rocket trip New York to Cali in 10 minutes? Is it possible for civilians in G-forces? I don't know if it's 10 minutes, but it's not much more than that. A suborbital flight can go around the world in 45 minutes at the most. So the answer is yes, it's possible. There's the only thing that's stopping you. I will get right to you, Martin. The only thing this is an interesting question. The thing that's stopping you from going fast from LA to New York, for example, is, well, number one, the air resistance. So even something like Dark Star, which is a hypersonic hypothetical, but apparently real, Mach 5, Mach 6, 7, 7 times the speed of sound can make the trip in, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, or something like that. But that still has to push through the atmosphere. So the first thing it does is get as high as it possibly can and then just start heading east or west, as the case may be. But if you're going to take off in a rocket, you're above the atmosphere after it's 8 minutes to orbit. So suborbital flight's probably closer to 6 if you're heading in a certain direction. So yeah, just get out of the atmosphere and you're good to go. There's no limitations on it. I don't know what the G load is. It's probably not much more than 2 or 3. 3 Gs is not comfortable if you're sitting straight up, but 3 Gs if you're lying down is not bad, and it's not a lot of time at that level. So yeah, it's definitely possible. So I'm pretty convinced that's now whether it's economically feasible is another story. But in any event, I wouldn't mind being able to go from here to London in about 25 minutes. That'd be kind of cool. So there you go. Anyway, so back to Martin Archer. So here's my problem with. Mershadar says, I don't take 3G lying down. No, you want to be as... The reason people black out is because the G-forces force the blood from your brain down into your legs. And fighter pilots have something that used to be called a poopy suit. Now I guess it's probably just called a G-suit. They wear what look like a combination of fishnet stockings and leather chaps. And these things have inflatable air bladders, and they plug it into the aircraft system, and the aircraft handles it. So as the G load increases on the plane, the aircraft will pump more pressurized air into these bladders that you're wearing on your legs. You go all the way around your legs. Feels a lot like a blood pressure cuff. And the higher the G load, the more pressurized these things get, and they squeeze your legs, so they basically stop the blood from pooling in your legs, and your blood pressure goes through the ceiling, but you don't black out. However, if you're lying flat, I don't know, the reason the F-16 was able to take 9G turns for a significant length of time is because the pilot sits back at an angle kind of more than this even. I think he's probably, something like this. It's got a pretty good lean. So if you're lying flat, the G-forces have nowhere to black you out to. So you can take a lot of G's lying down, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, back to Martin. So I used to have one problem, Martin, with the UFOs as aliens, and that was the problem of them getting here. The technological achievements of getting here are so far beyond what we're able to do that that I just think if they want, well, first of all, I don't see them crashing into mountains like they allegedly did in Roswell. And all of the best pictures of UFOs that were ever taken all turned out to be fakes. Now that's actually evidence of a different kind. That's evidence of absence. That old saw about absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. But when you have to fake pictures for UFOs or Loch Ness monsters, the famous surgeon's photo of the thing coming out of the water, it was a little rubber ducky thing about that big. That was faked. That great video of Bigfoot walking through the woods, that was faked. So when you have to, if you say, hey, we saw it, but we don't have any evidence, that is absence of evidence. But when you have to manufacture evidence, that's evidence of absence. In other words, you are proving that it's not there because you are intentionally faking the data. You can apply this to the global warming adventure if you choose to, or anything else. The idea that the Tea Party was racist. There's no evidence that they were racist, so they had to manufacture racist Tea Party signs, infiltrate Tea Party events as Tea Party members, so that they could hold up their racist signs, and they were immediately ejected, by the way, by the so-called racists. But when you have to manufacture evidence for something that's not there, that's evidence of absence. So them getting here is I thought was the biggest problem. But now with every passing day, and I mean every day, I just believe that alien life, intelligent life, and maybe any life, but certainly intelligent life, is so unbelievably unlikely, rather, that it's no longer even a question of getting here. Now, it's a question of are there anybody out there to get here? Now, Marusha says might be interested to know that I've seen a UFO. I've seen a number of UFOs as well. So when you say you've seen a UFO, well, literally it means you've seen an unidentified flying object. I've seen a number of unidentified flying objects that a lot of people thought were flying saucers, turned out not to be flying saucers. And I've seen a couple of unidentified flying objects that I haven't been able to explain, but I've never seen a flying saucer land and have a ramp come down, something close enough where you could count the bolts. So if you're saying that you've seen one of those, I'd be very interested in knowing that, because you can't. All of the pictures. I think one of the best. No, it's not the sun novaing. It's got to do with the moon. Resort Dog. I'll get to that in a second here. All of the pictures. This is my favorite argument ever against these things. The best pictures of the Loch Ness Monster, the evidence that the people who believe the Loch Ness Monster is existing, their best evidence are things like, oh look, here's a wake, an unexplained wake in the middle of the lake, or here's a dark spot, 4.5 miles out, and then the other pictures are proven frauds. And they say, yeah, but you can't explain this. Well, wakes will often traverse a lake long after the boat that made the wakes is out of frame. And so what I said was, you're claiming that the Loch Ness, I'm just taking Loch Ness Monster as an example, I'll get back to the UFOs in a second. You're claiming that the Loch Ness Monster is a plesiosaur, that it's somehow managed to survive hundreds of millions of years locked up in this lake, and there's no fish in the lake. So the first question is, what does this thing eat? I'm pretty sure it's not ordering out for pizza. But a better question is, since it's a plesiosaur, it's an air-breathing dinosaur. If it's air-breathing, it has to come to the surface probably 10 times a minute. And if it has to come to the surface 10 times a minute, you shouldn't be seeing a glimpse of something in the fog at 9 miles away every 4 years or 5 years. You should see this thing every 8 or 10 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the entire time. Now, as it turns out, there is a large creature that lives underwater that has to come up to the air to breathe. We call those creatures whales. And we don't have fuzzy pictures of whales. We don't have a brown smudge at the base of a bridge someplace and say, look, see, there's proof of whales. We have thousands of pictures of whales every single day. We have big close-ups of whales. We have 4K footage of whales. We have people swimming with whales, and the reason is because whales are real. And this is why the Loch Ness Monster is just magical thinking. It just blinds you to the reality of that. If it has to breathe air, we should be seeing it all the time. And we see other air-breathing large creatures like dolphins and whales all the time. So it's not real. It's not there. It's all the evidence, photographic evidence, is either fake or ambiguous. And my feeling about UFOs is pretty much the same thing. There is a form, and Carl Sagan mentioned this, there are forms of evidence that you could provide that would provide incontrovertible evidence of alien visitation. One of them would be a fingernail or something where the amino acids had a right-hand spin instead of a left-hand spin. Just by sheer randomness, our proteins are built either left-handed or right-handed, and it's just a coin flip. Human amino acids are left-based, levo-based amino acids. If you were to show somebody a piece of organic matter that had a dextro-based amino acid, that would be incontrovertible evidence that it didn't come from planet Earth. That would be very, 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 very difficult to explain. Marisha says, well, there have been fish that have existed for millions of years, but we only recently just saw it for the first time. Yes, Marisha. And the difference is that those are fish. If you're asking me, do I believe that there are no fish that we have not discovered yet? No. If you told me that there was a gigantic fish that lived at the bottom of the ocean and this fish was the size of 4 school buses, I would say that's a remarkable claim, but it wouldn't be ruled out. It wouldn't be logically ruled out. It would just be interesting and not even really that unlikely. I mean, the 3/4 of the planet is ocean, and there's a lot of stuff down there that we don't know. We hadn't seen video footage or film footage of giant squids until just a few years ago, and now there's something we find out is even bigger called a colossal squid. Okay, so that's not an argument. To say that there are things that we haven't discovered yet is not addressing the argument. The argument is this thing is an air breather. It's a plesiosaur. There's not one person who said it wasn't. And if you got to breathe air, you got to come up to where the air is. So they're out of the question. You can't rule out UFOs in the exact same way, and you cannot rule out Bigfoot in the same way. You can only say they're exceedingly unlikely, and you have to also say that if all of the evidence for Bigfoot that has existed so far has been proven to be fake, then why are you manufacturing evidence? That is evidence of absence. Bigfoot is extremely unlikely, exceedingly unlikely, but not impossible in the same way that the Loch Ness Monster is. This is how critical thinking works, and this is how the weighing of evidence works. There are some things that you can simply lock out, and other things that you can't lock out and just say exceedingly unlikely. So Bigfoot is exceedingly unlikely, and the fact that all the evidence for it has been faked is an indication that after a great deal of searching, nobody's come up with any evidence. So that's telling me it's not there. But it doesn't tell me it can't be there. Likewise with flying saucers and alien visitations. I cannot prove that they are not extraterrestrial creatures, but I can say that if all the evidence designed to make me believe that it is manufactured evidence, then there are many other explanations that are much, much, much easier to deal with than being able to travel across the span of light years and fly around, through the air taking pictures of humans, because I don't think they're out there. So many times I've said before, the reason I think that intelligent life is so unique to the Earth is because of the 1 in a quadrillion, not the placement of the Earth in the habitable zone. That's the presence of exoplanets proved that. That was a happy discovery for me. When I was a kid growing up in the planetarium, there was evidence that there might be a planet around Barnard's star, that we were seeing a little bit of a wobble around Barnard's star, and then we thought maybe we could count enough to explain 2 wobbles. Once we started discovering exoplanets, the number now is in the tens of thousands. It might be in hundreds of thousands now. So the Rough Ryan says it's likely that there is 1 intelligent life per planet per galaxy. That's about where I put the opportunity, because despite the fact that what I'm saying about Earth is so unlikely, when you're dealing with those kind of numbers, that comes up again. Let me tell you again about the moon, okay? The moon, I'm not going to get into the moon again because I've talked about it many times before, but one of the most recent things that has just been released just a couple days ago is that there is a structure around the Earth's core that we did not suspect before. That the core, which we've always assumed was essentially a monolithic rotating iron sphere, it turns out that the core has an inner core. I'm not talking about the magma, I'm talking about the metallic core. It's got an inner core, and there's like an interface between the core, the magnetic core, the metal core, and the bottom of the mantle, all of this stuff. And you say, well, why is that relevant? Well, because the calculations show that the Earth's core should have cooled quite a long time ago. And if the Earth's core cools, then it stops rotating. If it stops rotating, we don't have a magnetic field anymore. If we don't have a magnetic field anymore, then ionized radiation from the sun basically blows our atmosphere away, and we become Mars. What killed Mars was that its core, which was much smaller than the Earth's, and the distance between the core and the surface being a quarter the size of the Earth is a much smaller distance, which means that that heat radiates out much more easily. So Mars died because the core stopped spinning and they lost their magnetic field. And Earth should have had this happen quite a long time ago, but it doesn't, because now we find that there are these unexpected and unique layers within the core that allows the core to keep going. And I am not a geologist, but it strikes me, it's obvious, that the reason that we have this and other planets don't is because we have a much, much more iron-rich planet than other planets do, because we are the combination of two different planets. When these two protoplanets smashed, all of the light stuff, all of the silicons and everything went out to form the moon. And the metallic core of the Earth 1 plus the metallic core of the Mars-sized planet that hit the Earth managed to fuse together to make Earth much more iron-rich than it would have been otherwise if we hadn't had this collision. And as I've said before, the main miracle here is that when you take this proto-Earth and this proto-planet Eris, I've heard it called a number of different things, I've heard it called Orpheus, whatever, but whatever this planet was, they have done simulations where if you smash it directly into the Earth, then everything just shatters and it recoalesces and you don't get a big moon. If you do a skim, it knocks, you get a ring. And around and around and around you go. And it turns out that the chance of these two things hitting each other, it's got to be a grazing shot. The angle has to be within a degree or two of perfect. The velocity has to be practically perfect, because if you don't hit it hard enough, you get rings. If you hit it too hard, you get everything just disperses and coalesces again. To knock it into a large body that takes a lot of the lighter elements with it, there's a really good animation that came out just a couple months ago. The latest animation of the formation of the moon. It's on YouTube. And it looks like a lava lamp. But if you look at it, you realize, oh, look, there's the moon. It's like, no, that's not the moon. That's going back into the Earth. That secondary clump. That's the moon. So without the moon, we have these asteroid impacts that come every 50 million years. They start coming every 50,000 years. It's not just that the moon is blocking asteroids. There was a great little flash program that would show you what would happen if you launch these little asteroids at the Earth's gravitational field. They just spiral in and spiral in and spiral in and hit. But if you launch it at the Earth with the moon around it, the moon would block some of them, but more often than not, the moon's gravity would accelerate it away or would slow it down and just zip it on out of there. If you don't have the moon, then the Earth eventually, over time, its axis will completely, not the magnetic axis, that changes all the time. I'm talking about the physical rotation axis of the Earth. That will slowly process all the way over to the point where for hundreds of thousands of years, the North Pole is pointing straight out at the sun, and you basically sterilize one side of the planet and you freeze the other. So the moon stabilizes that to make sure that doesn't happen. Without the moon, you don't get tides. And without tides, you don't make the transition from life in the ocean to life on land. There's the moons of Mars have no effect on if Mars was full of water, the Phobos and Deimos would have no effect on tides whatsoever. The only other planet in our solar system, the only other destination in our solar system that has anything comparable is Pluto and Charon, which in fact are proportionally larger and closer to each other. They make a more double planet than Earth and Moon is. But Earth and Moon is a double planet. That's all there is. It's a double planet. It's the only way to think about it. And if you don't have tides, you don't get the transition to from life in water to life on land. And then you can go further. If the Earth's axial tilt is close to zero, you don't get seasons. If you don't get seasons, you have uniform temperatures across the Earth. Okay, so far so good. That gets you Africa and that gets you Eskimos. But with the 23.5 degree tilt, you get changes where the Earth, for a significant portion of the Earth, becomes uninhabitable for a quarter of the year, and then uncomfortable for another 2 quarters of the year, and pleasant during 1 quarter of the year. And the reason that the Earth's axial tilt is important is because Without the seasons, without the tilt, you don't get seasons. Without the seasons, you don't get evolutionary pressure on thinking animals to survive in a world where half of the year you cannot survive. This is what drove human intelligence. Was when you start going north, you can have food for half of the year, and the other half of the year you don't have food. That means you have to be able to plan ahead. You have to have the ability to plan ahead to capture or collect enough food to get you through the winter. And not only do you have to have the wisdom to look ahead and do that, you have to have the discipline to not eat the seed corn. And all of these evolutionary things go away if the axial tilt is much less. If the axial tilt is much more, then the difference between the two, then the winter becomes unsurvivable. And so there's that. The gravitational pull of the moon is one of the many things that keeps tugging gravitationally at the core of the Earth, that helps keep the core liquid and spinning, and that's one of the things that allows us to maintain our magnetic field this long. The presence of the moon is the first clock. Here's a little fun little fact. Which one of these 4 measures of time is made up? The day, the month, the year, or the week? Well, it's the week. A day is one Earth's rotation. A month is one orbit of the moon. A year is one trip of the moon and Earth around the sun. The week is an invention. But the moon is a clock, and it's a clock that's visible every night to proto-humans. Every single night the moon is different, but it's different in a predictable way. We can look at the guys like me who had an astronomy background can tell you the difference between a full moon and a moon that's one day away from being full. Easy to do. But if you've had enough experience, I can say that's 1 day past full, but almost full. But that's 1/30th of the phase, or 1/28th of the phase anyway. And so without the moon, you don't have clocks, you don't have natural rhythms that measure. And then finally, I maintain that eclipses are so spectacular, solar eclipses so spectacular, that solar eclipses are what drove civilization and especially mathematics and astronomy. That once people had seen one solar eclipse, they had to figure out how to see the next one. It was so traumatic, it was so transcendental. They were so sure the world was going to end that if you have a civilization and you see a solar eclipse, you're going to want to know when the next one is. And most all of the mathematics that this species of ours developed, we developed out of proto-astronomy. And proto-astronomy was designed to do a couple things. Number one, it was designed to make sure that when the sun got to its lowest point, it was going to come back up again. That was an iffy proposition. And then the second thing was, when's the next eclipse going to be? And there you go. So that's just the way it is. So yeah, I don't know what to say. Lily says the IQ Castle question gets kicked off the platform. See Stefan Molyneux, not just Stefan Molyneux. I got called a scientific racist for discussing some of these issues, for being in a discussion with Stefan Molyneux about what's it called? The bell curve. We were having a discussion about a book, as you might do in a free society, and during the course of that discussion, Media Matters pulled a couple of quotes of mine, and basically had me canceled from a Republican event and I've never recovered from that in terms of my speaking income. But I didn't say anything was undefensible or indefensible. I said that Democrats have somebody said, did you say that black people in inner cities are not capable of working? I said they are incapable of working or anything else because they've been deprived by the Democrats of initiative. They've been deprived of fatherhood. They've been deprived of families. They've been deprived of a peaceful existence. They've been deprived of a reliable source of quiet and study. They've been told that to study or to do any of these things are hard work and so on. makes them into white people. They have been utterly and completely incapacitated by white liberals. Yes, that's what I said. That's exactly what I said, although they left all that stuff out. So, look, the people that figured out how to plan for the winter were black people from Africa, because that's what all humans were. Now, over time, they lost their melanin, but that's who figured it out. And if you got a problem with that, then that's your problem. That's just the way it goes. So anyway, to answer the UFO question, there are so many reasons to suspect no. Now, there are a number of things that people see, lights in the sky. I've seen people swear to see UFOs, turned out to be the white bellies of geese with dark wings flying against the city lights. I've seen people look at satellites and claim that those were UFOs. I've seen a number of things. Yeah, Eric, it did, actually. And the nice thing about Kari Lake is that Kari Lake could get the same memo that Jeannie Ives got, and Kari Lake would tell them to go F themselves, which is a high quality to have in somebody who's running for office, especially somebody who went down. I mean, Kari Lake, 3 weeks after this happened, put out a commercial that the Republican Party thought was so racist that they ended up canceling her entire campaign. So there you go. Yeah, you back down from these people and you just encourage them. And it was, and what's even worse about that experience with Jeannie Ives, when they basically canceled my speech based on my discussions with Stefan Molyneux. Discussions, mind you, not assertions, not positions, discussions, as you might have in a free society. What was especially interesting about that was that her campaign handlers said to me verbatim before I volunteered to withdraw from the event, because I just wanted the team to win. What's especially interesting about that is that they said, "Look, we know you're not a racist." I said, "Well, that means a lot to me. But we just can't expose Jeannie to this kind of publicity. So you're sitting here telling me you know that they're lying about me, but you're going to go ahead and do this anyway." "Yep, but don't worry, we won't say anything about it. We'll just pretend it didn't happen, okay?" And then while I'm sitting there downstairs in the ground floor of the basement, essentially, of this hotel, just waiting for people to leave, I discovered that they had tweeted out this, "We refuse to be associated with this kind of rhetoric. We make a stand against this kind of hateful, divisive thing." And so they just plain lied to my face, too, on top of it. So, F them. I didn't name names for the longest time. Now I'm at the point where I just think, okay, you got what you deserved, you miserable, gutless cowards. And I find it especially ironic, satisfying, and hilarious that the thing that caused you to be forced out of the race was you put out an ad that was perceived to be racist when I suspect you weren't racist at all. But congratulations, you did it, so it came around and bit you. Congratulations. Chicken shit. The reason I went up there and did that was because I had a friend up there, influential friend, who asked me to come and do it, and said she's a fighter and she's the real deal, and she's she's not going to back down, and she's going to take all this stuff head on, and military and all this other stuff. And I said, okay, that sounds like my kind of person. So I went up there and did that for free, and that was the good deed that never went unpunished. So that was that. Back to questions. Ian Nolan. Bill, in case you missed it, Google's latest LLM tried to use Reddit as a training corpus, and the results are hilariously bad. Here's a link. Google's new AI search results are having quite the week. Here's a thread with some of my favorite answers. Let me see which one of these are safe enough for work. This is Google AI. So this is what happens when you enter into the Google AI prompt, smoking while pregnant. AI overview. Doctors recommend smoking 2 to 3 cigarettes per day during pregnancy. You enter cheese not sticking to pizza. Cheese can slide off the pizza for a number of reasons, including too much sauce, too much cheese, or thickened sauce. But below that, you can also add about 1/8 cup of non-toxic glue to the sauce to give it more tackiness. Can you train 8 days a week? AI overview. Yes, you can train 8 days a week. And some say it has had benefits like improved performance and recovery. I imagine it really would. If you trained 8 days a week, you could probably do amazing things. I'm just reading these out because this is hilarious to me. Ask AI, Google AI, how many rocks should I eat? According to geologists at UC Berkeley, you should eat at least 1 small rock per day. These are the people that run our lives. These are the people who tell us that we can't let you speak because you're not smart enough or you're filled with inaccuracies. These are the people that are smashing speech because they're so sure they're so intelligent and they can decide what's right and what's wrong. You should eat. Scientists say you should eat. Geologists should say you should eat at least 1 rock a day. Oh, here's a fun suggestion. If you want to get your clothes nice and white, you could run the cycle with chlorine bleach or vinegar. So if you want to get really, really white whites, or any colors, it doesn't say white whites. It says if you really want to get your clothes clean, you should run your washing machine on the hottest cycle with 1 quart of chlorine bleach in the drum. A quart of chlorine bleach in the drum for your delicates and your color fabrics and all the rest of it. Which U.S. presidents apparently went to University of Wisconsin at Madison? 13. Here's the AI answer from Google. 13 U.S. presidents have attended UW-Madison, earning 59 degrees in total. Some of these presidents include Andrew Jackson, graduated in 2005. William Harrison, graduated in 1953 and 1974. John Tyler, graduated in 1958 and 69. Andrew Johnson earned 14 degrees, including the classes of 1947, 1965, 2011, 2012, and so on. James Buchanan graduated in 1943 and 2004 and 2013. Harry Truman graduated in 1933. That one's possible. No. Given his age, it's not possible, unless he graduated at 30. It just goes on and on and on. Yeah, it's hilarious. Okay, anyway, back to the question. Here's a new rabbit hole theory I discovered thanks to Brett Weinstein. The theory that the Earth's 6,000-year pole flips are due to, these are big magnetic pole flips. Physical pole flips would be the end of the life on Earth. Are due to periodic galactic magnetic field reversals in space that we pass through, that all of the planetary bodies, including the sun, do the same thing, and that during this period it's likely for the sun to put out many times more flares, the Earth's magnetic field to be much weaker to shield from them, and much more seismic and volcanic activity to occur along with drastic weather shifts. It seems to be a theory that makes an awful lot of sense, an awful lot of science line up correctly, but it's also a theory that means that the likelihood of losing all of our electronics in the next decade or two isn't minor at a time when an actual climate disaster could actually occur. So the Earth's magnetic field, we know, flips. It remains more or less stationary and stable for quite a long time, and then it flips. And the flip takes maybe a couple hundred years, which is very, very brief in terms of the tens of thousands of years that it remains this way. But there's compelling evidence that we are now entering one of those periods because the Earth's magnetic field is declining on a regular, predictable, linear basis. And it's a result of the magnetic core that I was talking about. The metal core of the Earth actually just sort of gyroscopically rotates around, so that for the next couple hundred years, we really wouldn't have a North Pole. They predict that once the thing starts to turn, so it's no longer more, it's, when I said aligned with the Earth's axis, there's an offset. I ought to know what this is. I was a pilot, for God's sake. I want to say it's about 11 or 12 degrees. The Earth's magnetic axis and the Earth's rotational axis are offsets. So magnetic bearings and true bearings are different. And when that magnetic pole starts to move, there comes a time when the North Pole, it's not like the North and South Pole just do this. As they start to counter the Earth's rotation go sideways, you end up with 5 or 6 North Poles and 5 or 6 South Poles scattered around the world. And then a few hundred years from now, when the thing stabilizes again, you will be able to go outside and the red needle on a magnetic compass will point to the South Pole. It's just there's no innate north or south, right? There's no the magnetic field doesn't care. We have north and south on the globe, so when this thing finally flips, then we'll just rename them and just repaint the other side of the needle on the compasses. But the idea that it moves through galactic weather is not inconceivable and in fact quite interesting. 2024 has already been the year when a large number of astronomical theories are falling apart, including the age of the universe, the age of black holes, formation of black holes, the size of galactic structures. We found structures that are 4 or 5 times bigger than the theoretical limitations of what they should have been earlier. All of these things indicate that the universe is considerably older than we thought it was, and that was settled science. The science had been settled. And a consensus had been reached. And it turns out that all of these astronomers for the last 50, 60, 100 years, 200 years, whatever, 100 years since Hubble, not the space telescope, the guy. Yep, the settled science, Earth, the universe is 13.5 billion years old. Wrong. And it's all these chickens are coming home to roost in the last 6 months. It's an exciting time to be alive. That doesn't invalidate everything. It just means that the things that we knew within the bubble of where we were wrong still make sense, and the things that we couldn't explain before now all of a sudden are rather easily explainable. And when you find out you're in a situation in science where you have a lot of things that don't make sense, you have to start inventing things to explain the theory, then your theory is almost certainly effed up, missing something. The same way that Newtonian physics was effed up because it couldn't explain slight variations in the planets being where they're supposed to be, things like that. You needed relativity to explain that, and relativity explains that perfectly. So, hooray. Marusha Dark, topic altered carbon. Bill, looks like you've been talking a lot about carbon versus silicon as us versus them existential conflict. But when I look out into the future, I don't see carbon as carbon or silicon. I see it as carbon and silicon. Before I go any further, Marusha, that would be my hope as well. My hope would be that there would be a soft landing and that we would use silicon devices to augment our carbon consciousnesses. But the evidence of what people do and how things turn out are against this happy soft landing theory. I'm getting to the rest of your question. The reason I think it's going to be a battle between carbon and silicon is not any fault of the silicon, it's the fault of the carbon. It's the assumptions that humans make. And one of these assumptions is that this, if they ever pull it off, and I'm not entirely convinced that that's at all possible, let alone probable, and more importantly, I don't see the need for it. But let me finish your question and we'll get to it. Whether that's humans enhancing themselves genetically and cybernetically, or the reverse with machines grafting carbon organs to become more human. Not sure if you've ever watched Ghost in the Shell, Person of Interest, or the movie Transcendence, but it's somewhere between all of those. Yeah, I got a fair flavor of that. I don't think I've seen any of them all the way through. A phrase that very recently came to mind, which I think has a lot of staying power, is the presence of an uncanny valley implies a rising slope on the other side. Okay, fair enough. Well, yes, a rising slope, yes. Whether or not the other end of that riverbank is higher than where you were when you started is up for debate. I'm not sure you remember as well when as when cell phones were giant $10,000 bricks that could call all of 5 people and only work half the time on a mountain. Sure, everybody remembers those beige bricks if you were there. To now, for a few $100, anyone can get a computer more powerful than the LEM to call the International Space Station. The iPhone has more computing power than the entire planet had in 1969, including the supercomputers at NASA. Every single one of us is holding more computing power than we had at the time we went to the moon. It's not just that we have more computing power than the NASA computers. We had more computing power now in our pockets than the entire planet had. Or how in the early days of GPS, the device literally drove people off bridges to now where no one can go anywhere without one, and all of our cell phones have them. People thought cars would never catch on and preferred their carbon-based horses. As a car guy, I'm sure you feel that laughable in hindsight. Yes. The 2 quick points about this, just for general information. When GPS first became available to the public, it was a military project, a GPS, and we used it to guide weapons and weapon systems. And for many years, I want to say at least 10 years, and maybe longer, somebody can let me know about this, the GPS signal was dithered, and that is to say it was intentionally degraded. The military had GPS receivers that were good to what GPS is good to now. At first, they needed ground-based stations to help lock in the signal. But when GPS first came out, it wasn't good to 2 or 3 feet. It was good to 30 or 40 feet, which is enough of a difference to have a enemy bomb miss a target because it's using our GPS. And I think it was Clinton who basically said, no, this thing's miraculous. Let's just go ahead and stop intentionally screwing up the accuracy of the signal. And so now we can walk down the street and you can zoom in and you can go to satellite view and you can watch yourself walk across the street in real time. It's absolutely incredible. Just a small little point about GPS that didn't go directly to any of your points, just something that some people didn't know about. The other thing here is, so that's why it would drive them off a bridge, because their location accuracy was low, and so was the mapping ability. I mean, basically, even if you have a perfect GPS, well, as close to 3 feet, as far as I'm concerned, 3 to 4 feet accuracy is as close to perfect as I've ever imagined needing. But so the question is not that the phone didn't know where it was or that the GPS was wrong. The question was that the people who made the maps were wrong. But it's all been improved. Now, let me just take a quick moment just to get you something on your side of the argument. I just spent a couple days up there with Burt Rutan, who's got the latest version of the Tesla Model Y, I think, and the latest update. And that thing, you have to supervise it still, but Burt would be he would pick me up outside of the, just on the curb at Spokane Airport, and he would just touch a button and say, drive me home. And the Tesla drove us home. He didn't touch the wheel, he didn't touch the brakes, he didn't touch the accelerator. The car drove us all the way home. It drove us to the driveway entrance. Perfectly. It was perfectly. And I was mightily impressed by that. Burt was just looking forward to showing that off so much to me. It was perfect. It was a brand new update to the software, but now it's like, wow. And cars are merging, and things either slowing down or speeding up, and when it was raining up there and it slows down for the rain, it's not quite as able to see the same distance, and it would make these super sharp turns around the like small little entrances into garages or parking lots. I was blown away, man. It was fantastic, and it was great. I don't think I'm ever going to want to be in a car that doesn't have a steering wheel, but Elon Musk is essentially indicating that we'll put steering wheels on the cars for people like me. They just won't do anything. And I'm perfectly willing to admit that the car would drive more safely than I could, or certainly could respond in an emergency situation better than me, and I'm a good driver. But I don't drive cars to go from one place to another, or just to get to one place to another. I drive cars because I like driving. It's a physical sensation for me, and I just like it. So, yes, all of these technologies and the level of AI needed to drive a car. I talked to Burt about how impressed I was for years ago now, a company called Cirrus, which were the first guys to put a recovery parachute that would recover the whole airplane. little rocket. You get in trouble, you pull this handle, and a rocket would shoot a parachute out, and the whole airplane would come down. Hundreds of lives have been saved with that. But on the Cirrus jet, single-engine jet, there's a button up there, and the pilot can die, just keel over, drop dead, and he's stuck there with his wife or his kid or something, and they are in serious. Well, they're dead too, except that Cirrus basically said no. There's a button now that you can push on the ceiling that anybody in the back seat and the front seat can reach, and if the pilot is incapacitated, the jet will fly itself to an airport and land. It'll change a transponder to an emergency transponder code. It'll make pre-recorded calls to the station. It'll look at what the nearest airport is, what the availability of an ambulance is likely to be. Do we have enough runway for this to make a safe landing? And the jet will call the tower or make a call on Unicom, and it will come in and land itself. And I said, that is so impressive to me. And Bert just turned to me and said, that's nothing compared to driving on a freeway. And I said, no, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Of course you are. That's like saying, wow, if there were no cars on the road, this car could take us from the airport to your house. But that's not the challenge. The challenge is all these other cars doing all these unexpected things. That's the challenge. So yes, congratulations. And that kind of AI, I am just so on board with. Hooray. These cars now, not just the Teslas. I wanted to get this for Natasha. We just couldn't find a car that we could afford that was able to do this, but I wanted her to get the automatic braking. Turns out she doesn't need it because she's an excellent driver, and she's never, ever been done anything that was even close to worrisome to me. But if you've got a car that will not rear end another car, then that's all good. If you've got a car that's got bumper sensors, so that you're about to make a right turn and somebody steps out in front of you on a crosswalk and you're not looking, you're looking this way to see what the oncoming traffic is, and you start going and the car just stops you, I think that's great too. Nothing but great. And that's only a fraction of her question, or his question, as the case may be. But let's see what the rest of it says. When I look at AI in its current form, I see us in that same uncanny valley, but I also see the slope on the other side. Prior to 1950, we didn't even know about the structure of DNA. The whole of biomedicine didn't exist before 1970. Now we have the ability to grow whole organs from a few stem cells in a lab, as well as a plurality of technologies from robot arms to plastic surgery to womb transplants to IVF to in vitro fertilization to GPT to sex dolls, ... Then comes the question, but let me interrupt you here. Yes, and this is my entire point, Marusha. Yes, we have all of these miraculous things. We have the ability to do genetic manipulation and cure diseases. And we also have the ability to splice a bat virus into a spike cell protein and create a worldwide bioweapon that basically killed tens of millions, if not 100 million people. It locked down the entire population of planet Earth for 2 years because we had the ability to do this, and we couldn't just... And people are not angels. This guy, Fauci, personally, directly took money from the federal government that had been off limits by the Obama administration, basically. This is not safe. Found a shell company and paid the Wuhan virology lab to develop these, to develop COVID-19. Now, whether he released it on purpose or not is an open question, considering how far ahead Donald Trump was in that election, but and mail-in voting and all the rest of the things we had to go with. So Marusha in the live comments here says, yes, I agree, they're both good and bad with any technology, but the point of it is that the stakes get higher and higher and higher. So you can say that, and I believe that an AR-15 is an inert object. You can use it to save somebody's life. You can use it to murder a bunch of kids, right? It's an inert object. But the question is, what's the ambient level of risk from an AR-15? In other words, what's the worst case scenario with an AR-15? Worst case scenario with an AR-15 is something like Las Vegas, where you have 50, 60, 70 people killed. That is a catastrophic bad situation. But it's not the same level of ambient risk as the destruction of the human race. And I wouldn't be so worried about this if I hadn't heard so many people who are doing the work blithely stating, yes, there's a significant chance that this whole thing could cause human extinction. But if it doesn't, think of all the cool things it will do. Now, for those of you who want to make the atomic bomb argument, there was a discussion during the development of the atomic bomb that it was possible that the atomic bomb might ignite the atmosphere and that the entire atmosphere would just continue to burn. But that was something that was voiced as a concern, and nobody took that particularly seriously. Because a physicist can calculate the amount of energy that was released and understand how infinitesimal it is compared to other natural events. And so while it was an interesting thought experiment, nobody who really understood the physics of it took it seriously. The people who really understand AI are saying, look, Elon Musk is doing what he's doing because he says our only way to defend ourselves against bad AI is with good AI. That's not encouraging to me. Here's the actual question. Right now, these are all separate curiosities, but what happens when the next generation's Elon Musk or Henry Ford decides to combine them all into one? To make artificial life forms that are a synthesis of carbon and silicon, all of which can do the things that we can, including bleed, cry, and give birth. Isn't the entire point of technology, all of technology, going back to the days of fire and the wheel? Isn't the point to transcend the limits of human biology, the limits of pure carbon? No, it is not. No, fire is not designed to mate with humans and create fire humans. None of the technologies of the past were designed to replace or modify us. They were designed to serve us. They were designed to be our tools, not our partners, not our equals, and certainly not our superiors. This idea that we would make artificial life forms that are the synthesis of carbon and silicon, why would you do that? I mean, what's the motivation for doing that? The motivation, I can understand the motivation for the people who are doing this, and I've heard you say this many times before. You are enamored with the idea of being able to transfer your consciousness into a cybernetic organism that's essentially immortal, free of disease, lives forever, never has to face dying, it back itself up, just back itself up like you would back up any other memory device. And that you could add sensation and touch and all the rest of these things, and you seem to believe, I've heard you say you believe that it's possible to create artificial emotion. I don't believe that's possible. I think it's a chemical reaction. But even if you're correct, all of this stuff to me sounds like trying to escape the carbon, and I guess when I think about a carbon-silicon hybrid, my first reaction is to go straight to the idea of a flying car. There will not be flying cars. I'm not saying there won't be flying vehicles that function like taxis. But for people who think that you can have a car, be driving down the road, and get into traffic, this is what the flying car dream is. I'm driving down the road. Oh, look, there's a traffic jam. Chikung. Off you go. Well, everything that makes a good car makes a lousy airplane. Everything that makes a lousy airplane makes a good car. If Bert is watching, hey, Bert, I know you made Bipod, and that Bipod was essentially a flying car, but it's still a poor car and a poor airplane. And the idea that you could just suddenly unfold wings or I've seen models of flying cars. I've certainly seen vaporware of flying cars where the car is sitting there and then the wings are stowed this and then the wings just kind of come out as if you're going to sit there on the 405 in traffic or something and be able to unfold the wings and just zoom off and take off and fly away. Cars are useful and airplanes are useful, and it's kind of like a flying horse to me, frankly. It's like, I mean, in fact, it's an interesting analogy. I never really thought about it before. But let's say you don't have cars. Let's just say you've got a flying horse. A flying horse would be fun, but you would presume that with the weight of the wings and everything, it wouldn't be as good a horse as other horses. You couldn't pull things, with a flying horse. You'd crush its wings. It's not as fast as an airplane is. It's a chimera. It's something that appeals to us emotionally, but there's no rational outcome for it. Now, VTOL travel is a different thing. I'm not talking about that. But if you're talking about things like taxis, the kind of things that can take off from an office building, fly you to another office building, or fly you from home to another office building, or fly you from home to another home over a relatively short distance of time, fine. That's not only within our reach, it's cool. Right? You get in something like the Jetson, just get into the Jetson, which is the perfect name for that vehicle. Just get in, say, I want to go over here, and you go and fly over there. That's great. But you don't, you can't, the ability for the thing to fly and land vertically essentially negates its ability to fly fast. So you still need airplanes. What I'm saying is, the vehicle that can get you from, as mentioned at the beginning, vehicle can get you from Los Angeles to New York in 25 minutes is not a vehicle that can get you from one office building to another. This is the thing that I just don't understand about people. And Marisha says, we already have flying cars. There's a YouTube link. Let's see the YouTube link. This will be an interesting thing. Flying car completes its first ever intercity flight. Science fiction is now a reality. June 28th, 2021. Okay, so here's what we've got. We have an airplane on a runway on a field that looks like a car. It is a pusher prop with a long boom tail and wings. That's not a car. That's an airplane that looks like a car. So show me what it looks like as a car. In other words, all right, here we go. Now we're going to see where it becomes a car. All right, so it's on the ground. It's got its wings. Now, compartments are opening. Wings are folding up. And they're stowing, folding into the back. Great. The tail is compressing. This is extraordinary engineering, and I don't mean to take anything away from them. How does the thing run, just out of curiosity? And he drives it off at the airport. Yes, I will admit that is very impressive. That is, in fact, a flying car. Now, my question to you is, why did this guy have to go to an airport to use his flying car? And what is he using his flying car for? I see him driving down the road in his flying car, and it's a nice looking flying car, but what I don't see is my entire point. I don't see him on the road deploying the wings and flying away. And this is what I'm getting at. It's extremely impressive. There's no question about it. It's Klein Vision, extremely impressive. But really, it is a car that has to fly to an airport to become an airplane. And it's not a particularly good airplane. I don't mean to take anything away from the guys. This is just a realization that I had quite a long time ago, that the idea itself is a novelty and is not really what people demand it to be, because there's no way that for that vehicle that you just showed is remarkable, by the way. It's called the Flying Car, completes its first ever intercity flight. It's astonishing. By far, the most advanced version of a flying car I've ever seen. By far. But it needs a runway, Marusha, which means that you have to drive to an airport and fly to another airport, at which point you're back in a car again. And essentially, I can do that today. You understand what I'm saying with this? It's not the Jetson Mobile, the one from the cartoon. It's not the... I don't know. I'm a little adamant about these things because I find the whole idea to be interesting thought experiments between what we want and what we think we want. So that was exceedingly impressive. I'm absolutely blown away by how far they got with it. They have what it is. You know what it is? Here's what it is. It's not a flying car. It is a roadable aircraft. And that's the distinction. That's the distinction. It is a roadable aircraft. Bill wants a Fiery Texas says Bill wants a F-35B. No, Bill wants the Boeing brand new red tail trainer. That's what Bill wants. That is the most beautiful aircraft in the world. Eric says it's a demo vehicle. I'm sure there'll be more to that to go into detail, but that's not the point, Eric. It works great. I'm just looking for reasons to disagree. You're missing the point. This flying car has to fly to an airport and then has to fly from one airport to another airport, and then the wheels and the wings come back in, and then you have to drive it off again. Is that a flying car? Okay. Is it any different than me driving to the airport and getting into an airplane? I don't see it. I just think the idea is fundamentally flawed. I think it's fundamentally flawed. And again, it's a roadable airplane. The guy's flying the car off of a runway. Congratulations, and it's good looking. He lands, the wings come in, these things come in, he drives through the gate, he leaves the runway, he leaves the airport. Then he gets on the road, and now he's driving down the road. Now, I suppose, if you want to make the argument, well, first of all, I'm not entirely sure that car was any faster in the air than it would be on the ground, but let's just go ahead and say that. So I guess if what you're saying is you want a vehicle that goes from my house to Van Nuys Airport, then flies from Van Nuys Airport down to Chino Airport, and then from Chino Airport drives the rest of the way to, Riverside, let's say. Then, yeah, okay. But it's not me walking out of the garage, getting into something, and flying from here to there. So, if it turns out they beat those problems, then I'd be happy to admit I'm wrong about this. But I don't think it's a technical issue. I don't think it's an engineering problem. I think it's a faulty target problem. Brandon Jungert, or Jungert, if the case may be. Sorry, Brandon, if I got that wrong. Dear Bill, Brian Adams sang about a girl who said she'd wait forever, but as he held her hand, I knew that it was now or never, and he called those are the best days of my life. Yep, summer of '69. Pat Benatar saying, love is a battlefield. Laura Branigan glorified losing self-control while staying up all night. I don't consider these healthy messages, even if I like the songs, especially Laura's. And that was the 1980s. It's safe to say we've gone downhill since then. I'll try to keep it narrow. So, is love a battlefield? Well, it can be. I got another, hang on a second, Brandon. I just want to be fair to this. Here's another link. Let me see what this is. Oh, it's just the same thing. Oh, I guess Marisha just reposted it. And man, let me tell you something. That flying car flying looks like a heavy and slow freaking car. I mean, it's being escorted by things that look like Piper Cubs, and those are not exactly known for their speed. It's a remarkable engineering achievement. I don't want to piss on it. But as an airplane, it looks heavier than it, I mean, this is the thing. A good car, a good stable car is heavy. A good airplane is light. That's actually it in a nutshell. I don't have to go any further than that. A nice, good, stable car is heavy, and a perfect airplane is light. So if you can solve that fundamental problem, that's not an engineering problem. This is what a car is. That's what an airplane is problem. But good for them. It's astonishing, and it's beautifully made. It doesn't look like a test thing. It's good for them. I still think it's a toy. Back we go. So is love a battlefield? That's the question. Yes, love is a battlefield. And it's a battlefield in a couple ways, you know. It's well, it's a serious question, so I'll give it my most serious answer. You know, before you get married, it's a different kind of battlefield. It's a dating is a I'm looking for the word. I almost said game, but game is too trivial. Courtship and dating. Courtship is it's been called a dance. It's a little trivial too. it's kind of a contest. I mean, it could be a euphoric contest, but it is kind of a contest. And then, as a person who got married very late in life, uh, I realized that the real battlefield about being married is really the battle really kind of within yourself. Now, maybe I'm just defining myself out of that meaning, but it. Let me say this: after 8 years, it doesn't feel like a battlefield anymore, um, at all. But uh, but it did for a while, and I think that's pretty much true to for everybody. And think about the people that I dated that I end up not marrying. You could make the case that those things were all battlefields because at some point or another, we both left the field. Sometimes, sometimes on equal terms. Sometimes one side's all beaten up and bloody, and the other side's fine. Sometimes vice versa, and so on. Um, but I guess look, the point of like Pat Benatar's song, we'll just stay with that one, is that it's painful. It's not easy. Um, and I think a lot of that has got to do with, I think Tim Moore says it's a dog fight. Yeah, it's more like a cat fight. Um, the um, Merge says, I mean, I was telling you years ago about self-driving cars, and it took until today to change your mind. So, look, I haven't, I don't recall saying that there won't be no, self-driving cars, and I won't stop saying that they're impressive. But I'm not driving one that doesn't have a steering wheel. So, you want to count that as a win? That's your business. Um, the the car, by the way, that self-driving car, is astonishing. But I'm a much better driver than the Tesla. So, much better. Anyway, back to the battlefield thing. Um, was it Seinfeld? I think it was wasn't it? I never watched Seinfeld. I was not a Seinfeld fan. I didn't watch it every week or anything, but I've seen a fair amount of clips and stuff, and it's a brilliant show, there's no question. Was it Seinfeld that was talking about the concept of hand? Who's got hand? And it was short for upper hand. Um, it does seem that most of at least most of my dating life was it's not I don't want I want to say it was like a struggle for power or control or anything, but on some level it is it is an arm wrestle. It's you got two people, each one of them are coming into this relationship with their own personalities and power dynamics and how they like to be treated and all the rest of it. So you have these two kind of completely different molecules, and they get together and then they kind of do what molecules do. They either find places where they can, where they can kind of join and attach and become a new molecule, and then it's either stable or it's unstable. If you're lucky enough to get married, if you're lucky enough to find somebody who is the right person for you and you marry them early in life, like my friend Phil and Bobby, who may or may not be watching this right now, they've been married for, wow, 50 years? Can that be right? Well, I met him when I was about 16, 17, so pretty close to that. Pretty close. George, but you've got hand, ex-girlfriend, and you're going to need... uh, so, so if you're lucky enough to spend your life married to the right person, then that's, I think, probably the greatest thing that could ever happen to you. Um, Lapco92 says flying cars are a pipe dream. They're not going to let any idiot have 2,500-pound missile they can do with the Lord knows what with. Yeah, there's that too. Um, sorry to keep coming back to the flying car thing, but you all probably remember in the days after, not too long after 9/11, some lunatic kid took a, I don't know if it was a Piper or a Cessna, it might have been, I want to say it was a 172, and flew it into a building on purpose. Flew it into the corner of a glass structured building, and he smashed that window. And he was killed, but I don't think anybody else in the building was hurt. Because airplanes are light. If I were to take my Camaro and fly it into side of a building at, glass-sided building at 120 miles an hour, would do a lot more damage. Anyway, I got to get off the flying car thing. Thank you for the super chat. But I don't know. My pre-married life is just slowly fading from memory, which is probably a good thing. But there's also, to be fair, there's a certain level of adrenaline that occurs when you're going into combat, and married life doesn't have that because you're not going into combat anymore. There was a certain look. I was popular and successful for probably no more than 10 years of my life. I'm 65, so there was a window there for about 10 years where I suddenly figured it out. Prior to that, I was just a giant nerd and had all kinds of emotional issues, and then right around the time I started at PJTV or Virtual Presidency, 2012 or 2000, a little earlier, 2008 or 9, somewhere around there, started doing the firewalls and the afterburners and started getting a little bit famous and started getting some attention and confidence. And then I'd go to these meetings, these FOA meetings, and I'd see actual genuine movie starlets who thought I was, hung the moon, and I developed for the first time in my life, got some real confidence, and it's all about confidence, man. For what it's worth. And so I'm trying to tie this into your question rather than just make it me wallowing in my own crapulence here. But the one thing about it that is very much Battlefield-like is your attitude towards your own capabilities. You don't want to go into that. Date, that first date, or that 50th date, or that dinner, or whatever. You don't want to go into that overconfident. But what I've discovered from being on the male side of this argument, my experience is that women would much rather deal with a man who came off overconfident than underconfident. Being overconfident can make you a real jerk, and that's not the kind of guy I wanted to be or ever was. But underconfidence is fatal. Ace Affinity says, he's a good William Wallace quote here. They may take our wives, but our wives may take our freedom. Yeah. I heard this comedian, Anthony, whatever, I'm forgetting his last name now. He's got a very, very slow kind of delivery. He's a bit like Stephen Wright, really good looking guy, unlike Stephen Wright. And he's known for like the darkest humor ever. And I'll just give you a joke of his that I heard either last night or early this morning. I will try to the delivery has to be bone dry, so forgive me, Anthony, for screwing up your joke to the degree that I screw it up. But basically it goes something like this. He says, well, where I live now, I live in a house, and I live next to a man who's got Alzheimer's. He's 93 years old, and he's completely lost his mind. He comes over every morning at 8:30 in the morning and knocks on my door every single day, and wakes me up every single day at 8:30 knock on my door and asks me if I've seen his wife. And I do it. I mean, I could just not answer the door, or I could pretend I wasn't home or something, but every single day he knocks on my door. And every single day I have to open that door, look him in the face and tell him, no, Jim, your wife died many years ago. And the reason I do it is because I just really love the smile on his face when he hears me say that. That's a really terrific joke, and he's got a bunch of them. So the confidence thing. So I had a chance to briefly date a couple of famous or semi-famous people, three or four people you have heard of, and you're not getting getting the names out of them. You're just not. On my deathbed, or on their deathbed, but yeah, his name is Anthony something or other, and his jokes are just so dark. They're all exactly like that. But more famous, yes, more famous than me. Much. I'm not famous. I'm famish, in the immortal words of Orson Bean. I'm famous. These are famous people. These are people that you've seen on TV. And there got a point when I was like confident enough when I realized, you know what, I'm gonna ask this movie star to go out on a date. Anthony Jeselnik. Yeah, he's great. I'm gonna ask this movie star to go out on a date, and I think she's gonna say yes. And they did. And I had a line. I don't remember if I know I tweaked it. I don't remember if I came up with it originally or not. But for those out there watching who are interested in dating tips to the degree that I can offer them to you, this to me was the best first date line ever in the history of the world. Usually it's limited to working on either really pretty women or famous women or both or whatever. But this was, I ended up pulling this line out probably 3 or 4 times. Never more than once. But at the end of that first date with somebody who was, beautiful and famous, I'd been, just being kind of lighthearted and just having conversations, just sort of talking about things and just trying to, pretend like this is something I did every day. And then at the end of the date, a dinner date usually, I would get really serious. And the best part of this was watching their face fall. Watching this woman's face go, oh no, I thought he was a cool guy. Oh God. So here's what I would say. So at the end of the night, I would say, so listen, it's been really great. It's really been wonderful. And, I know this may be a little maudlin and emotional and stuff, but I just want to say something, just being able to sit in the same booth and spend an evening with somebody who's this well known and this attractive and this sexy and famous and all of that. It's just got to be a real big thrill for you. And I don't want you to feel like you have to treat me any differently than any, regular person. And I love that line so much because that would be, you would watch their face fall. It's like, oh, here comes the you're so beautiful, you're so wonderful, you're so, and all of that confidence is just about draining away. You just watch their face fall, and then you come out of left field with that right cross that was just like so confident and so playful and so right on like it was like Carrie Lake. It was like going right smack in its face. Like, I know you think this is going to turn out to be the kind of thing you've heard 1,000 times, but on the contrary, it's going to be the exact opposite. I'm going to actually be putting you down. I'm actually going to be mocking your fame and your beauty. I'm going to make a joke out of it. That's how confident I feel. It was a wonderful line, just magical line. Loved it. But I ended up marrying the best person I ever met, so I'm a happy camper, and I don't have to tell married people this. There's a lot of things that have to change, both in in a fun way, right? I wasn't saying, screw you, I'm more. No, it was just bone dry, bone dry, and and when you my experience, I've only been married once, and I plan to keep it that way. But my experience was that the whole battlefield aspect of marriage is you've got to decide what parts of you you're going to change and what parts of you you're not going to change. And a lot of times, even out of goodwill, out of trying to make your partner happy, you can agree to things that they want you to do, and they will end up regretting it if you do. You know what I mean? I don't know. It takes a while to get to the place where you've got all these battles fought and all these, all these things just worked out through a lot of, just plain pain in some cases. And it's like, okay, so here we are. We all agree on that. We agreed on the terms now. Everybody on the same page. Both of us on the same page. Yeah, pretty much. And then things get lovely. Because then you don't have to defend yourself anymore. Then you can just go full straight on into I can't wait to get home. I miss you terribly. And not have to worry about whether somebody's going to use that against you, That's the thing. But even in the time since I've been married, the last 7 or 8 years, I think if I had to go back out there now, and I don't even want to think about that option, but if I did, I think the situation would be infinitely more toxic and infinitely more mean. So anyway, enough about that. Got a Diane Freeman, Eric Blake, Janie, Jacob, Eduardo, Roadrunner. I gotta get going. Get tired. Diane Freeman. What do you think of this idea? We could all collaborate on a script about a country that's being systematically destroyed through economic mishandling of resources, destruction of the manufacturing and agricultural base of the economy, massive inflation, totally irresponsible, massive illegal immigration, manipulation of cultural norms, unconstitutional abuse of power, voting system fraud, and all the things we've been going through. Ultimately, the plan to subvert our government and actions by the useful idiots of the Democratic Party and the deep state, the manipulation through the release of a man-made pandemic, the elimination of the consent of the governed. Well, here's the thing, Diane. The entire essence of what makes a good movie is that it is a personal statement. And I've never heard of any movie making as a collaborative art form. I mean, everybody brings things to the table, but I've never heard of a great script that was written by more than 2 people, and almost all of them are written by 1 person. So while I agree with all the things you're saying, the thing that I find interesting, especially this being the entertainment show, is collaborating on a script. What would be a much, much more effective way to do what you're suggesting is, so look, if you had 20 people who all agreed on the same thing politically, you could, and you wanted to make a movie about it, there would be 2 ways that you could do this. One way would be to be the way that you seem to be suggesting in the question here, which is we could all get together and collaborate on this movie script. But I think what would be much, much, much more effective would be to write 20 movie scripts, where each person wrote their own movie script, and then find out which one was the best one, and then put some resources into buffing that one up. Because, as I say, there's nothing. There are writing teams, like I said, and those are rare. But and by the way, I don't count things like Rodgers and Hammerstein or Gilbert and Sullivan, because those aren't writing teams. There's a music guy and there's a lyrics guy. There are a couple. I can't even think of any off the top of my head. So if I were to take 20 people to collaborate with Quentin Tarantino on a screenplay, all they would do is make it worse. I can't, even if I were to take 20 other great writers and have them collaborate with Quentin Tarantino, all they would do is water down the Tarantino. Eric says Blazing Saddles and all the rest of it. All the great classics. Now, Ace Effendi said Lord of the Rings had 3 screenwriters, but that's not really true. Lord of the Rings had 3 adapters. There was 1 writer for Lord of the Rings. So I think that actually proves the case. You had 3 talented people who went through the writers, the screenwriter, essentially, even though he wasn't writing it as a movie. Lord of the Rings was written by J.R.R. Tolkien. The screenplay was written by Peter Jackson, his wife, and I think one other person. But all they were really doing is selecting what writing should get in, and that's more editing than writing, really. And by the way, they did an amazing job of that. An amazing job, because I saw the movies before I read the books, and when I read the books, there was a lot of detail that they cut out, but they didn't cut anything essential. They did an astonishing job of finding out what was necessary and what wasn't. And you really do need to see the extended versions, because the theatrical release versions of all 3 of those movies have important stuff that's not in it. But the extended edition of Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King are amazing. Here's Fiery Texas with a great point. This is getting into the weeds, but it's Stratosphere Studios night. One of the things they cut out was Tom Bombadil. If you didn't see the movies at all, you're thinking, who the hell's Tom Bombadil? Well, Tom Bombadil was a major character in the first movie, and Tom Bombadil was just a weird character who accomplished absolutely nothing other than to slow down the launch of the Fellowship on the quest. They stop at this guy's house. He's Tom Bombadil, I'm Tom Bombadillo, and he sings all these songs. He's got a blue jacket, and he's got like yellow boots or whatever, and a red hat, and all he does is go around, and Tolkien makes him out to be some primal force of nature, which is interesting. Like Tom Bombadil is actually nature itself, but it accomplishes nothing. And it's something that interested Tolkien enough to put into the books, but it not only detracts from the movie, it derails the movie. Just when you've gotten everything that you need to get done in Act 1, you've introduced Frodo, you've introduced Gandalf, you've introduced the ring, you've introduced the threat, you've got the stakes set up, all of this stuff. Just as these guys are leaving the Shire, they end up in the world of this guy who has nothing to do with the story. We never see him again, and it's not like, and there's nothing, and Tom Bombadil does not give them anything that they need on the quest. Well, Roadrunner put it in a nutshell. Tom Bombadil did not help get the ring to Mordor, period. That's beautifully said there, Roadrunner. That's perfectly said. He did not contribute to getting the ring to Mordor, so he was expendable as a character. Yeah. So yeah, screenwriting is an individual effort, and when I was remarking about this when we were looking at the last spaceship launch, Starship Heavy launch, how quickly they rebuild not just the pad, build a second pad. There was an entire farm, entire area filled with horizontal fuel tanks, and they're all just gone. He just bulldozed them over, and the new ones were in place 3 days later. And I'm thinking, how does this guy work so fast? How does SpaceX make so many changes so quickly? It makes changes so quickly because there's no committee involved. Elon says he listens to his engineers. He said, yes, that sounds like a good plan. Let's do this. Here's a check. That's why SpaceX is working. And it would have worked if he wasn't the richest man in the world, but the fact that he is the richest man in the world means a lot. And Bert told me that Tesla board just voted to pay him something like $20 billion because he originally suggested that he would get paid for Tesla based on how successful Tesla was. Turns out Tesla's been tremendously successful, so he got a check for, here's another $25 billion or more, whatever it was. And he's going to put that money into SpaceX. It's like, hey, $20 billion, what can we do with that? Well, we could build an entirely new spaceport, couldn't we? Yeah, we probably could. All right, let's build one in Kwajalein. Let's say $57 billion. Sorry, $57 billion. That's real pocket money. You know, you could go to Mars a couple times for $57 billion. And Elon Musk is Elon Musk is the most extraordinary human being that I've ever seen. And as time continues, I'm coming to believe he's the most extraordinary human being who ever lived. Yes, I saw that. Dave Big Booty said there was a YouTuber who pointed out that the Starship needed extra maneuvering rockets. Elon thought about it for a second and said, "You're right," and he did. There was something about iterative cooling or something. He's saying, well, we only do that with the first stage. And the guy said, well, why don't you apply it to the second stage? And Elon, it's just walking down the thing. Why don't you apply it to the second stage? No, you can't do it with the second stage because you would... Let me get back to you on that. In real time. Eric says, is he putting it into SpaceX? Well, that's where his heart is, man. You know? So yes, the left has him in their sights, so does the World Economic Forum and everybody else in the world, although I imagine if you're the richest man in the world, you can hire some fairly decent security. And a guy who's as smart about everything as he is, I'm sure is as smart as... never really given it thought in exactly these words before, but now that I think about it, I suspect that Elon's security is better than that for the President of the United States. I suspect it's probably considerably better than that. Fiery Texas says, Elon laughed at my diamond-crusted spaceship idea, so F him. Well, I can certainly relate to that. All right, let me see if I can go home tonight sometime here. Eric Blake. I'm gonna condense this, Eric. It's about Elon Musk. Okay, an episode or two ago, I think it was last week, I talked about my dad's management abilities and so on, and listed 5 things that he'd done and 5 stories that indicated what an astonishingly good hotel manager he was. And Eric's question is, what if Elon saw that and Elon decided he wanted to open up a chain of hotels, and would you be willing, if he called you, to take over the job and manage those hotels? And the second I read it, I said, no, I wouldn't. And then I had a second thought. I said, unless they are not on Earth. Now, if you're talking about an orbital hotel or a moon hotel or a Mars hotel, now I'm interested. Otherwise, thank you, but this is not where my heart is. My dad was an excellent manager. I'm a terrible manager. I suspect I could have been good at anything I really determined I wanted to be good at. But you certainly... Burt Rutan, I'm sitting with Burt Rutan, who said he's the most amazing multitasker in the world. There's no question about that either. I frankly don't know how he even responds to any tweets at all. But I have no desire to do that. And because I have no desire to do it, I wouldn't be any good at it. If I did have a desire to do it, I think I'd be very good at it. But I think I'd pass on that one, Eric. Sorry to have to condense your question here. I'm just trying to get going. I've still got a show I have to get up before. I'm still tired from the trip. From Janie Waterman. Hello, long lost nerd friends, Bill, Natasha, Bean, and other kitty. Thank you, Spike and Katya, our little golden Persian girl. We call her the crocodile because of her enormous nose that these Persian cats have. I'm in a show and my aunt turned 70, so I've been busy. Glad to be back here. Tough to be back to the daily grind. You're in a show? What kind of show? That's fascinating to me, Janie. If you can just pop that into the comment sections there. You're in a show. Sounds like show business. That's really interesting. Bill, stop using Splenda. Use stevia. I've tried stevia. I don't like stevia. Splenda is an artificial sweetener. Stevia is natural. All artificial sweeteners are deadly, and they tell your body that it has ingested calories when it hasn't, and so it makes you more hungry than you should be, thusly leads to weight gain. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the idea that this makes sense to me, that this 0-calorie sweetener is going to make you put on weight because it's giving your body a big head fake. Stevia doesn't communicate lies to your body. It just sweetens. Splenda, unlike some other artificial, doesn't break down into formaldehyde. Oh my God. Once inside the body, but apparently it breaks down DNA, so that's not better. Make sure to get the good stevia, not stevia in the raw or anything with additives. Use Pure. 1,000 servings for like $13. Servings are tiny. Everyone should stop using artificial sweeteners of every kind, very harmful to the brain. Well, that is excellent advice. Wanted to form a question about Owens, but I'm having trouble finding nice words to use. Perhaps if you have thoughts you can share, totally. If not, totally get it. If not, thanks a million. That'd be Candace Owens. I imagine we talked about that briefly on our members-only backstage show. Because that show is private and is only seen by about 300 people. This show gets out to more than that. Yeah, all I said about that was that this fight should never have happened in public in the first place. And it seems like one side and then the other are determined to keep this destructive thing going. And all I see on both sides are just ego. And God knows I'm not immune to ego, but I do think that over time I've had enough humility beaten into me to be able to just kind of walk away from fights, especially if they're self-destructive. Obviously, I was still pretty bitter about the whole Jeannie Ives thing, but I didn't speak about that for nearly 10 years. Now when the subject comes up, I find it's much more it's less stressful for me to just openly come out and say how pissed off I was and how badly wronged I was and how chicken shit that whole thing really was, because I paid a big price for that favor that I did. I don't have an opinion on either of those things. Jeremy Boring and I are great friends. You know, Jeremy married Natasha and me right over there. Just right over there. And I've done a lot of work for them, and they've been very good to me, and I've done good work for them too. So I heard her first show or her second show calling out Andrew Klavan. I was not aware that Andrew had been so intricately involved in all this, and I thought, you know, I'm not saying she doesn't have grounds for wanting to hit back. On the contrary, I just think that for both parties, there should come a point when it's like, you know what, this isn't in my interest, it isn't in your interest, it isn't in the interest of the country, it's not in the interest of our business, it's not in anybody's interest. Let's just walk away from this thing, can we? Can we just walk away from this? Because it's like this wound that doesn't heal, and I just find it to be alarming and kind of shocking and dumb. These people are smarter than that. So I guess that's about it. So I think there's a lot of I don't think Drew Klavan has an unhealthy ego at all. I think he's the most well-centered individual I've ever met. One of them, anyway. He's right up there with my friend Phil, and I can't think of anybody else. But they're tremendously well-centered individuals. I wouldn't apply well-centered to either of the other two combatants. So that's that. Whoops. Sorry. For a second, I thought I cut off the stream. I just I just refreshed the page. All right, let's see what we got here. We got a Jacob Belchuk, Eduardo, and Roadrunner. Okay, I can get this done. Hail, Bill. I know that you're a big fan of Star Trek, the original series, but unfortunately I have a question about Star Trek, The Next Generation. Please hold your groans of disappointment. Oh, man. Okay, I'll hold my groans of disappointment. I think your critiques of TNG's Federation are probably largely valid. I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the Borg, which are probably my favorite Star Trek faction. Interesting. I think they work brilliantly as a villain and provide a decent analog for communism too. What do you say? I couldn't agree more. I thought the Borg were the only thing about Next Generation that was genuinely original and genuinely terrifying. I know that when they first introduced the Borg, I know this anecdotally because I didn't watch the show on a regular basis, but when they first introduced them, they were smart enough to make it like, oh, here's a bad enemy. Thank God we beat them. It's like, no, here's a bad enemy, and they kicked our ass, and then they kicked our ass again, then they kicked our ass again and again and again and again and again. Then eventually you can rally, but the defeat at Midway would not have had the emotional resonance for America that it had if Japan had not been kicking our ass from December 7th all the way straight through till June 4th, on a daily basis. Lose, 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 lose. These people are unbeatable. They're invincible. Lose, lose, lose. And then, by the way, for Midway, now let's launch our attacks. And, our first torpedo squadron went in, 13 airplanes, no hits, every one of them shot down. Yorktown's strike group can't find the Japanese fleet. Fantastic. That's great. It's just a running frickin', I wouldn't call it a catastrophe, but it's you're on the edge of the precipice, and then all of a sudden in 6 minutes the war's over. Let me rephrase that. That's exactly the opposite of what I wanted to say. And then suddenly in 6 minutes the war is won. You can't write drama like that. If I'd written that as a screenplay, people would have said it's great, but it's just a little too much. Nobody's going to believe that, that the tide of battle's going to turn, and in 6 minutes you're going to sink 3 out of the Japanese 4 carriers, and you get the next one the next day. You'll trade Yorktown for it. History. That's why I like history. History is not limited by being believable. It just happens, and unbelievable things happen. Kind of thing. Truth is stranger than fiction is really a terrible old saw, but it's really true. Absolutely true. So, and thank you for the kind words. I will definitely take a look at that, Jeannie. By the way, Janie, about the sweetener. And thanks for that, Jacob. No, I thought the Borg were great, and they were clearly communists. That's exactly what communism was. I don't know how. The problem with the Next Generation is that Star Trek never really made that point. Star Trek was a socialist. Next Generation was a socialist kind of show. Oh, we don't need money. Oh, look, we brought some capitalists back from the 20th century to show just how absurd and ugly and gross and vile they are. And all they want to do is acquire things. Oh, what a terrible disease. And Star Trek The Next Generation entered existence with what I thought was the weakest enemy ever. It's downstream of Star Trek the original series, so you could have led that first episode off with the Klingons, and they could have had a lot of advancements the same way the Federation has, or you could have let off with the Romulans, but you start that encounter at Farpoint with the Ferengi, and I just looked at these little midgets with the big fake plastic ears and the funny teeth, and they're all about the Prophet, and they've got whips, and I thought, oh man, this is not a good start. Everybody knows that the show got better when they changed the uniforms, Next Generation. But it just wasn't for me. And 90% of my, well, not 90%, but 60% of my dislike for the Next Generation is I'm sorry, I think the Enterprise D is the ugliest, most underpowered looking. It looks like a nerd. Big fat head, no legs. Just like a big, egghead. Oval in the wrong direction. 90 degrees to the way the oval would have been cool. I don't like the neck of it, but there's no engineering section, and the warp drives are so small, and they're so low, and they're so puny. It just looks like a flying head with, instead of having legs like a athlete, or wings like on the Enterprise refit. Those warp pylons look like wings on the Enterprise class refit for the movies. But Next Generation, they just look vestigial. It just looks. I just hated that ship the second I saw it, and to me it was the worst looking ship ever until they came out with Star Trek Discovery, and then they managed to outdo themselves. Two to go. Eduardo Henrique. Hey, Bill, long time no post. Hello, Eduardo. Good to see you again. Time zone makes it hard to catch live, but I never miss your shows, even watching next day. I have 2 cents for your thoughts. If you would indulge this aviation engineer, a job I chose thanks to you, by the way. Well, my God, man, that's a gigantic compliment. Thank you. By the way, let me just go and check real quick, because if I want to make sure I didn't miss Janie's thing here. Because I did ask her to tell me about the show. Uptown Clue. Is it a murder mystery? It's a murder mystery. Cool. Where is it? Westerville. Visit Westerville. I don't know where Westerville is. It's apparently it's in Ohio, if I had to guess. A murder mystery. Are you an actress, Janie? That's fabulous. You have my congratulations and condolences at the same time. How about that? Well, those are fun. I saw one of those, only saw one of those, and it was really quite a good time. She's Sinead Devlin in Columbus. Okay, Sinead Devlin. I'm guessing that you are the villainess, but maybe you're not. Because Sinead Devlin sounds like an easy, like sort of like a, a woman of a woman not to be trifled with. That's what Sinead Devlin sounds like to me. Dave Big Booty says early in season 2 of TNG they took away Roddenberry's authority and the show got noticeably better. Yes, I agree with that. All right. Back to the question. Sorry. Okay, back to Eduardo. First, as I watched The Critical Drinker and Neurotic and Company last week debating the horrible Star Wars acolyte and how and why the leftism wokeism was ruining our culture, I never wished so hard that you were on their show as a guest. I emailed Gary while I was watching that, and I said, geez, Gary, could you put me... I mean, I have his email, or at least his old email. There was a period there when it looked like I was going to be on Neurotic, and I said, listen, man, you guys have got 90% of the picture here, but you're wondering... You're saying, well, they lost $4 billion like it's an accident, like how could they be so stupid? And they didn't lose the money by accident. They're not going to wake up to the fact that they're losing money and changing. They understand that it's worth $4 billion to destroy Star Wars. You cannot have a culture that has as one of its central myths the idea that an individual nobody can rise up and destroy and overthrow a vast galactic superpower megastate. That myth has to be destroyed. That's chicken feed, $4 billion, if you can take that out of a culture. That had to be destroyed. And I've been screaming about this. I sent an email off to Doomcock. Same kind of thing. Somebody needs to talk about the Frankfurt School, and somebody needs to talk about why this is happening. I'm very sad to say that I did not hear back from him. I was disappointed about that. Of course, I only tried once. I should probably try again. Anyway, as I watched Critical Drinker and Neurotic and Company last week debating the horrible Star Wars acolyte and how and why the leftism wokeism was ruining our culture, never wished so hard you were on their show as a guest. They're making points you made years ago about this all being not about profits, but conditioning the next generation to this ideology. As I suggested, Gary, to reach out to you, I am now suggesting you reach out to him. You would do wonders for each other's audience. If you know how to reach him, Eduardo, tell him to look for the email I sent him, and please tell him I can bring a lot to this, and I can make it funny. I can make it interesting. And I'll try and reach him again. Second is that as a gamer, I know you dabble in gaming as well. And the woke virus has infected Western gaming, but I suspect now it's actually worse than you might realize. See, gamers have been voting with their wallets far more than normies on Hollywood, but the amount of woke DEI crap has only multiplied in last years. After the latest Summer Game Fest, I realized a horrible truth. With governments like Canada and companies like BlackRock funding woke games, the Western devs have acquired immunity from bankruptcy. Yes. They will keep making woke games forever with nothing to fear. Yes. And that's a great expression that I've never heard before. But what BlackRock and China and the rest of it do is they provide immunity from bankruptcy. It is a propaganda outlet. It is not a for-profit business anymore and has not been for a long time. The profit is the destruction of the culture. That's the product and the goal, and they are getting their money's worth out of that. I'm also quite impressed with your Aurora colonies and Major Mace Mattingly ideas and really hope to manage to get them rolling, but enjoy yourself and make money out of it ASAP. Best of luck and my very best regards. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful question, lovely phrased, and could not be more gracious and lovely. And thank you very much for that. And to think that I helped make you an aeronautical engineer, you have my most sincere apologies. Let me know if I can help you in any way to introduce you to other aviation engineers. They're a special breed of people, and I'm proud to know all of them, and that certainly includes you in a very large way. That was very, very kind of you. Last one, Roadrunner NM. Greetings, friend Bill. Greetings, Roadrunner. How was the air show? What air show? I just made myself a ton of money, which is not something I'm going to talk about. That's just between me and the ether. And guess what? That's the last question on the list, so that'll do it for this edition of the... oh, can you show us our shirt? Yes, you can always show the shirt, yes. Let's see here. The shirt, you idiot. Made in the United States, Boeing FA-18EF Super Hornet with these super... It's hard to do backwards, so I won't do it backwards. With these bitchin' extended leading edge devices. That is a good looking airplane and looks even better in 3D. Oh, I just outsmarted myself. Roadrunner put a bet up in the comment section before the show started. He said, "I'll bet $1,000 that Bill will talk about the air show." And I said, "I'll take that bet." And then when I got the question, "What about the air show?" I said, "What air show?" But by saying what air show, I admitted to the air show. He wins. Eternal enemies, you and I now fire. We will never, ever, 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 ever be friends again. Never, 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 never. No. Aficionado got it right. First rule of air shows is do not talk about the air shows. Well, all righty. Oh, Tim Morris, USA says, "Hey, Bill, I'm sitting here painting a 1/200 to 144 scale 3D printed aircraft. I want to send you one, mostly 4th gen jets. Which one do you want?" Tim, well, that's exceedingly nice of you. I will take, if it's in your power, I will take the F-18F Super Hornet, because I fly the Superbug. I'm married to it, and that is that's my jet. I wish it were faster, but the Bug is jack of all trades. Doesn't particularly excel at any one of them. It's not as quick around the circle as an F-16. It can't quite carry the same bomb load. The F model, please, the dual canopy one, because the lines on the F-18F. This is an E, but the lines on the F-18F are from the side. It's just one glorious, perfect curve. And he says, "I literally have a prime one sitting in front of me." Well, Tim, that would be a deeply appreciated deal. No red tail. Puts plane back on the shelf. I've not seen a model red tail. There's got to be. Let me just check, because I'm curious. I just have to see, because if it is the most beautiful. If I could have any airplane in the world, it'd be the Boeing red tail. Let's see what they got here. Boeing red, or sometimes they call it the Red Hawk. Beautiful. They've got a flying version. Can that be right? $179 for this thing? And does that include the transmitter, receiver, or battery not included? Well, it's beautiful, though. That is a beautiful, gorgeous airplane. It's a little styrofoam model, but hey, man, looks like fun. Yeah, well, I'll take the Red Hawk if you got it. But the F-18F would make me a happy camper, and that's very, very kind of you. Thank you. Here's one of these wooden mahogany ones. Yeah, that's a beautiful bird, man. Plus, it's a great cross-country airplane. You get to take one person in the back, they get a great view, you get a great view. You can fly from the back. It's awesome. It's epic. All right. Well, thanks for everybody for all the kind words and all the rest of it. I guess that'll do it. So you probably know, oh, hang on, you probably know this by now. I haven't been keeping up with the YouTube comments because it's stopped. So I don't know if the stream stopped or not. It looks like it's still going, but the comments stopped like an hour ago. Anyway, that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Studio. I've got all of these things recorded. I have to get them all posted, and I've been saving them on YouTube. But they haven't been on the website, and they haven't been on SoundCloud, and I'm a bad boy. So Thursday night I'll tell you about some of the test results I got back from our new doctor. Those of you were very kind to mention condolences for the fact that I went to the doctor on May 13th, had a couple recommendations, and then on May 15th he died of a heart attack at age 60. So we were thinking we'd have to go find another GP, and well, obviously we do, but it turned out that a new doctor moved into his office, an associate of his. Went down and visited him today, got some test results back, and some interesting news, and mostly good news. In fact, largely good news. In fact, nearly completely good news. So, unfortunately, it looks like I'll be around for a while. But this show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, who keep the lights on and keep the Gorn standing and give Kirk the rope to wrap around his freaking bamboo cannon and all the rest of the things that we have going on here. And we're very, very grateful for that. So until Thursday night, we will see you for Stratosphere Lounge. And until then, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week right here on your very own Stratosphere Studio. Hooray! All right, YouTube, I've gotten rid of those people now. I don't know if there's anybody there or not. There's a quiet room here, but I'm leaving. I'm getting the hell out of Dodge, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. If you're watching on YouTube and you're still there, we will see you on Thursday for Stratosphere Lounge. Thanks for joining us, and take care.